Good morning, and thank you for attending Toronto Police Headquarters. My name is Connie Osborne, and I'm here today to introduce Chief of Police James Raymer, Deputy Chief Myron Demkiw, and Inspector Hank Idsinga from the Homicide Squad. They will be providing an update on the status of the investigations into recent homicides and shootings across the city.
Okay, good morning. Today I'm joined by Acting Deputy Chief of Police Myron Demkiw of our Specialized Operations Command and Inspector Hank Idsinga, Unit Commander of the Homicide Squad. Together, we want to update the public on the status of the investigations into the most recent shootings and homicides that have occurred throughout our city during the month of October. Although we have seen a 17% reduction in the number of shootings this year, we know those numbers do not reflect the impact any shooting incident has on loved ones and the communities in which they happen. We have listened to our community partners who have expressed concern over the recent spat of violence in their neighborhoods, and we also share their same concerns. We want to assure them in the City of Toronto that we are doing what we can to find those responsible and build a sense of safety and well-being for those most impacted. We have made a number of very quick arrests in most of our homicide investigations this past month, and we are asking for the public's help in finding those who are outstanding. Violent crime will always be our highest priority. As our solve rate has demonstrated, the service is relentless in pursuing these offenders and bringing them to justice. I'm going to ask Acting Deputy Demkiw to provide a general overview of our enforcement efforts, and Inspector Idsinga will go over the homicide cases in October. Finally, I want to thank the members of the public who have assisted us with our investigations by coming forward with information. I also want to thank our community partners who have offered advice and support and continue to work with us in achieving our mutual goal of neighborhood safety in our city. And I also want to thank our investigators and our frontline members who continue to go above and beyond when the community needs them the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I want to start by echoing the Chief's appreciation of our communities and our TPS members. These crimes have a traumatic impact on families and communities and leave a lasting impression on our officers and other first responders. I can assure you, the public, our homicide squad and our gun and gang task force investigators have been working long hours with the committed support of officers from other investigative units and the front line to bring some sense of closure to families, arrest those responsible, and build cases that will secure convictions in court. In fact, we've already achieved meaningful outcomes. The service has been working to provide a coordinated and effective response to shootings in partnership with our communities. As part of these efforts, the service has taken a distinctive and strong investigative stance on shootings, including the introduction of our centralized shooting response teams we refer to as the CSRT, resulting in more of these investigations being solved. The CSRT is comprised of 8 investigative teams that attend and investigate all firearm discharge incidences, including shots fired in the air, events that result in damage to property, as well as incidents where persons are shot at and missed or struck by a projectile or bullet. The CSRT works rotational shifts, providing coverage throughout our city 24/7. They work in a coordinated way with various units, including our homicide squad. This focused and centralized response to shooting investigations has in part contributed to the 17% reduction in our total shootings year to date, referenced by our chief. And we are cautiously optimistic that we may see a 20% reduction in shootings for the end of this year. While our investigative response is key, we are also proactively deploying resources to communities most affected, providing a visible police presence, reassurance, and building relationships with residents. But we do need the public's help. Today, we are requesting the public's assistance in identifying people wanted in different shooting incidents, including homicides. They are all considered armed and dangerous, and finding them is our top priority. I will let Inspector Idsinga comment on the homicide investigations, but as it relates to the CSRT investigations, they are currently looking for 2 young persons. They are wanted as part of a shooting investigation that started on October 8th on Gulliver Road in 12th Division. That evening, a fight started when 4 individuals produced handguns and discharged multiple rounds, hitting an 18-year-old man. He sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Investigators have arrested 1 man and 1 young male, and 2 additional young males remain outstanding. We have warrants in the first for both of these young people. We strongly encourage them to seek counsel and turn themselves in to the nearest police station immediately. We will continue to do our part to investigate all of these cases thoroughly and bring a sense of safety to our communities. If anyone has any information that could help us, please do not hesitate to contact police or Crime Stoppers. I will now ask Inspector Idsinga to provide an overview of the homicide investigations that our homicide squad has been focused on over the last month.
Thank you, Deputy in Chief. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. October was a busy month for the Toronto Police Service's Homicide Squad, and I would like to update you on our investigations. When it comes to homicides, we are currently at 74 homicides for the city with a 73% clearance rate year to date. For the month of October, we have had 11 homicides in total, starting with homicide number 64 on October the 3rd and taking us to homicide number 74 on October the 30th. 8 of these cases are fatal shootings, and to date, we have resolved 7 out of the 11 cases, meaning we either know who the suspect is and are actively seeking them, or we have arrested and charged them. I will go through the homicides individually very quickly. In the case of homicide number 64, we have arrested and charged someone with second-degree murder. Homicide number 65, we have identified a suspect, and they are currently wanted on a Canada-wide warrant for first-degree murder. Abil Aziz Mohammed, aged 22, is wanted in relation to the shooting that occurred on October the 13th in front of the Boston Pizza on Cinemart Drive in 42 Division. Homicide number 66, suspects are outstanding in this case, and we are continuing our investigation into the identity and location of those responsible for the shooting death of Randy Nguyen on October the 15th outside of the Lang Kang Bar and Lounge on Keele Street. Homicide number 67, we have arrested and charged 2 men with first-degree murder. Homicide number 68, a suspect is outstanding in this case, and we are continuing our investigation into the identity and location of the person or persons responsible for the shooting death of Kamal Daly on October the 23rd at Yorkwoods Plaza on Jane Street. Homicide number 69, we have arrested and charged a male with first-degree murder. Homicide number 70, a suspect is outstanding in this case, and we are continuing our investigation into the identity and location of the person or persons responsible for the shooting death of Matteo Ukana on October 23rd at a plaza on Weston Road. Homicide number 71. This is the case where the taxi driver was shot and killed in Pharmacy Avenue and Eglinton Avenue East area. We have a 17-year-old suspect who is wanted on a Canada-wide warrant for first-degree murder. Judicial authorization was granted to identify the young person, and we did issue his image and name in the form of a news release. However, that authorization has concluded, and we can no longer identify the individual publicly. Investigators are diligently pursuing every tip and lead in an effort to locate and arrest this individual. Homicide number 72. Suspects are outstanding in this case, and we are continuing to investigate the identity and location of the people responsible for the shooting death of Jamal James on October the 28th while he was sitting in his car in the parking lot of a residential complex on Washburn Way. Homicide number 73, we have arrested and charged an individual with second-degree murder. Homicide number 74, we have arrested and charged an individual with second-degree murder. Despite some of these incidents happening within days, even hours of each other and within the same or neighboring divisions, we do not have any evidence at this time to suggest they are connected in any way. But of course, we are always open to that possibility. As mentioned earlier, we have around a 73% clearance rate at the moment, and the year is not over. That rate will improve as we arrest more people involved in these cases. We have some of the best homicide investigators in the country working on these investigations who do tremendous work day in and day out. There is no doubt that they will continue to investigate these cases thoroughly with the victim and their families at the forefront of their minds. As the Chief has pointed out, we have always relied upon and have had tremendous help from members of the public. We highly value the assistance we receive every day from members of the affected communities, and we would not be able to have investigative success without them. We would ask that anyone who has any information, no matter how small, about any of these outstanding cases to please come forward and either speak with the police or with Crime Stoppers. As I mentioned at the outset of my remarks, in some of these cases, in some of these cases, we believe we know who is responsible, but we need help in securing that piece of evidence that will help us bring charges and secure convictions in court. And we will now take any questions.
We will now go to WebEx questions. You'll have one question and a follow-up. Once these questions have concluded, I'll pass to the floor. Stella, Radio Canada, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So there have been 74 murders since the beginning of the year. Are you worried in any way by this number?
I don't know who the question is directed at. To
the Chief of Police.
Yeah, we're always concerned about each and every homicide that occurs in the city. I think, you know, the number of 74 is really jumped up this year, given the last month.
Kelly?
We're really hoping that, you know, the numbers are not going to continue in that regard. And so we're going to have to see what it looks like at year end. But as it stands right now, we're doing as much work as we can on each and every case to solve them, and that's our priority.
Stella, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I wanted to know, with all the cases you just referenced, is there any links between any of them, or are they all isolated incidents? And whoever can answer the question.
Yeah, right now we have no evidence to suggest that any of them are linked, and we treat them as isolated incidents until the evidence tells us otherwise.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gilbert from the Star, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Good morning. I would like to ask Inspector Idsinga, you said the month of October was very busy for the officers and the inspectors. I wanted to ask, how do the numbers you saw in October compare to other months before, both in terms of the number of shootings, but also in terms of how you were able to solve the problems? And if you can also comment about the reasons, the factors that you think contributed to making October very busy? Thank you.
Well, I can tell you we were running at about 77, 78% solve rate coming into the months of September and October. September, I believe we had 10 homicides. October, we had 11. July, we had 12, so that was a very busy month as well. And some months we've only had 2 so far this year. So I can't understand why October has been so busy. It's happened before in past years. For some reason, towards the end of October, we get very busy. And especially this year, around October the 22nd, the weekend of October 22nd, I believe we had four to five homicides in and around that weekend. So, but I really am at a loss as to why the numbers go up in October like that.
And do you have a follow-up question, Gilbert?
Yes, I would like to ask a follow-up question. This is a very specific case. Involves a man named Hassan Ali. He was arrested on October 8th, I believe, in Los Angeles. I wanted to ask if you have any updates on his case, whether he's going to be extradited in Toronto, or he has been, or whether he's facing other charges in Los Angeles where he was arrested.
Yeah, we are working with the American authorities and the Ministry of the Attorney General for the extradition. I believe he will be returned to Toronto sooner than later. I don't have a specific date and time for that. There's quite a bit of logistics and paperwork and authorizations that have to be in place before we can execute that. But our investigators will eventually go down to the United States and return Mr. Ali back to Canada.
So, sorry, no specific dates when investigators will go to the US to follow this case?
Sorry, you broke up quite a bit there. I didn't quite hear your question.
I'm sorry, I was asking whether there is a specific date when investigators will be going to the US.
We don't know that yet.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Brad from The Sun, do you have a question?
Yeah, Hank, I was just going to ask, how many of these homicides do you think are gang related, or are you guys have determined that are gang related as opposed to just random beefs in bars and such?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, Brad, and I've talked about that before. It's very difficult to assign the term gang-related to any particular investigation, depending on your definition of what makes that particular event gang-related. So there's quite a few of the shootings that we're seeing where people involved in those shootings are affiliated to gangs. Whether that particular murder is motivated by that affiliation or not, I think ultimately gets answered down the road during a trial at court. So.
And do you have a follow-up, Brad?
No, that's fine. Thanks very much.
Linda from CBC, do you have a question?
Hi there. Yes, I do. This question is for Detective Idsinga. Just wondering about, the difficulty in coming up with suspect descriptions and making arrests. It seems from the list that you gave, in only about half of the last 10 or 11 homicides, charges have been laid. What's the challenge there in coming up with suspect descriptions and making these arrests?
Well, I think we're quite a bit over the halfway mark when it comes to these investigations. No doubt it's very difficult, especially with murder where it's a stranger on a stranger, executing that murder, or drive-by shootings where there's very little description of the suspects to go on. And we rely an awful lot, like I touched upon with the public's help, with tips through Crime Stoppers and utilizing technology as best as we can. As everyone's probably aware, we launched a specialized video unit as well in 2018, and they've done spectacular work as well, and definitely an asset to the homicide investigations and helping us to conclude some of these investigations.
And do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you. Yes, this is for Chief Raymer. Just by my count, I'm looking at the last 10 homicides. Seems 9 have been shootings. How concerning is this for you when you see guns being used on the streets, and in some cases these have been pretty brazen?
Yeah, it's particularly concerning, and I hear that when I'm talking to the community as well, and it just quite frankly speaks to the proliferation of guns in the community, and how easily available, frankly, they are, so it is a concern, and it speaks to why we put together these specialized units to sort of focus on apprehending those that are involved in distributing them, buying them, and ultimately using them.
We'll now pass over to the floor. Again, you'll have one question and one follow-up.
Thanks start. Hi, Chief. How much of these recent shootings and homicides would you say may be attributed to things opening up again, people being out and about and recognize, Inspector Idsinga noted that there is an increase in homicides in October for whatever reason, but this year, year to date, we have surpassed last year's total of homicides in the city and homicides by shooting in the city. That's been the case since 2018.
I mean, it seems that the shootings are, the dynamics of the events or the homicide seems to always be changing. I mean, I think one of the things that we're noticing, and it may be very well a product of the pandemic, and when we look back to 2019 compared to 2020 and 2021, we're seeing an increase in homicides where we're seeing a mental health component. And that, frankly, has been a dramatic increase for us, because I think we're up over 30% now of the cases where we're seeing that kind of involvement in the case. So, and I think that's one of the bigger differences that we're seeing this year. I think that number was more like in 2019, about 15%, 16% in that area. And so I think that's one of the changes we're seeing this year. So, and those events are very hard to address, hard to predict, hard to analyze, and so I think that's why we're seeing an increased number this year. Other factors, I'm sure, are involved as well, but that's certainly one of the ones that stands out for me.
Thank you. And Inspector Idsinga, you noted a 73% clearance rate. So obviously what you're referring to is the number of crimes that Toronto police solve based on the total number of crimes in the city each year. How does that compare to past years? You can elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, is that a major improvement?
I think last year was quite an improvement historically over previous years, and this year we are consistent with last year's results. I don't want to put the cart before the horse too much. We're not at December 31st yet, but those numbers always climb. I'm well aware of at least one other case still from 2020 that we are going to be making arrests on in 2021, and out of the outstanding 2021 cases, I know of at least 3. Obviously, I can't get into specifics about them, where we expect positive results as well. So, and that's just right off the top of my head. All it takes is that one phone call, that one tip from someone in the public, and we can resolve some of these outstanding cases as well. So I'm asking again for people to contact us or contact the tip line and give us that information that we need.
Next question.
Chief?
Yes.
I just wonder if I'm reading this right, that there's a bit of a shock of October, and are you here holding this news conference to reassure the public we've got this under control?
Yeah, essentially, Austin, yes. I mean, when I've been out and about, that's what I've been hearing from the community. I go out and the first thing they say to me, geez, Chief, there's been a lot of shootings. We at one point they said to me, well, we just had 6 homicides, and so yeah, it is a concern for the community. So I think it's important that we get out and just give everybody the information that they need in terms of what's happening, what's truly happening, what's the perspective of the police, how we're working with the community, what's the nature of the investigations, and then, of course, to get the help, to continue to ask for help. We do get lots of help. But, we can't emphasize enough, there's always that little bit of information someone has that they make a phone call and they talk to investigators, and it gives us that piece of evidence that we need to really put the closing touches on a case. So I think for all of those reasons, that's why we're here today.
What goes through your mind when you come to the end of October and suddenly you've got, Hank, 11 cases now? Where are we going to do?
Well, it's a tremendous amount of work for our people. I'll tell you that right now, and I sometimes get concerned about the volume of work just on them and the manpower or the people power that we have focused on these cases. But we're going to make our best efforts to be proactive in terms of dealing with offenders using guns, those distributing guns, which, quite frankly, is really a scourge for us here in the city and throughout the GTA and many places in the province where we're seeing this type of gun activity. So that's a priority for us, to be proactive and to just keep working with our community and encourage them to work with us to try to identify, people that are involved in this type of activity, so we can get them in front of the courts.
2 more questions.
Just touching on the gun violence, how do you think they're getting the guns?
Well, our statistics show that the vast majority of them, and I think it's closing in on 80% if the number's not there, are coming in from the United States. And so we do a lot of enforcement with our partners throughout the province to sort of work on those type of investigations to stop as much as that we can. But it's very, very difficult. We live in a country with the largest undefended border, with a significant gun culture in the United States, and it's a very difficult issue that we need to address. And quite frankly, that's the biggest problem we have in the city, is the volume of guns that are coming across the border.
Expanding on that a little more, do you think there's more of a role here that the federal government needs to play in order to help eliminate this and really get it under control?
Well, I think all levels of government see this as a priority, and we're trying to work and collaborate together. And we do that in regular meetings with the Criminal Intelligence Service of Ontario, with all the partners involved. So we are working on this and doing what we can. And certainly we do advocate where we can and where it's available for, some additional help and a funding to address this issue, certainly. And I think the government's listening and working towards that.
If we have no further questions, that can conclude our news conference today. We've got one last question.
So, Chief, I'm Craig with City News. There's the old expression, snitches get stitches. And you're asking for a lot of people to come forward. We're not talking about car accidents or truck accidents. We're talking about violent crime involving guns. Can you speak to the kind of security issues or safety concerns that witnesses might have if they come forward, whether they have to testify? There are people that have information but are scared to come forward. Can you speak to that?
Our system of justice, when people provide evidence towards a crime and we go to court, is going to require individuals to testify in court. I mean, that's the reality of the system we work under, and it's a good system. But that is certainly an element that does discourage some people, and that's why we have things like Crime Stoppers, which provide a credible opportunity for people to provide information directly to police that is of immense assistance. And it helps us in any number of investigations across the city, not just homicide, drug-related investigations, gun-related investigations. And so really, if someone is concerned about that, that is the best avenue to address that issue.
Thank you everyone for your attendance today. That concludes the news conference, and a news release will follow shortly.
Okay.